My son's wedding invitation lay on the kitchen table, my name violently crossed out in angry black marker. For months, Liam had been punishing me, his own mother, for refusing to sell my home to fund his extravagant wedding to Serafina. Little did he know, on the morning he was set to marry her, I would receive a phone call that would change both our lives forever. A call that would reveal a painful truth he had been hiding from everyone. Don't forget to subscribe while you're listening, and let us know in the comments where you're tuning in from. Now, take a breath and listen closely. This is my story. My son's wedding invitation lay on the kitchen table, my name violently crossed out in angry black marker. For months, Liam had been punishing me, his own mother, for refusing to sell my home to fund his extravagant wedding to Serafina. Little did he know, on the morning he was set to marry her, I would receive a phone call that the cream-coloured cardstock, once a symbol of my joy, now felt like a physical blow. 3 months earlier, I'd displayed it proudly, a promise of family. Now, it was a testament to his cold rejection. Liam's furious scrawl beneath my scratched-out name left no room for doubt. Since you've chosen not to support our future, we've decided you shouldn't be present for its beginning. 30 years of memories clung to the walls of this modest bungalow on Maple Street. The yellow curtains Daniel had hung still framed the kitchen window, faded by years of sunlight filtering through. Through them, I saw the azaleas in the garden my late husband started, their vibrant colours mocking the dull ache in my chest. I'd tended that garden alone for 12 years, since Daniel's heart attack took him too soon. Liam was our miracle, born after 7 years of silent yearning. Daniel and I had poured our lives into this house, a foundation for his future. I remembered his first steps by Daniel's handmade coffee table, laughter echoing in the kitchen during pancake breakfasts. Our backyard still held the faded chalk marks from his teenage architectural designs, proof of Daniel's quiet encouragement. After Daniel died, when Liam was 24, I worked grueling double shifts as a nurse at St. Jude's. Every late night, every early morning, was for Liam to finish his master's in architecture, debt-free. Seeing him graduate top of his class, his face beaming, made every sacrifice feel worthwhile. A photo in my hallway captured that moment. Liam and I, arms around each other, full of pride and promise. When had that loving, sensitive boy become this callous stranger? The change was subtle, then swift. As Liam's firm soared, he moved into an exclusive world. His clothes changed, his tastes refined, his visits home rare. Then, 3 years ago, at 36, he met Serafina Beaumont. She was old money, her family name etched into city buildings, her presence polished and intimidating. At 32, she was already a partner at a prestigious marketing firm. I felt my practical clothes and aging hands, marked by a lifetime of hard work, shrink beside her. "Mother?" Liam had announced during their first visit, a formality that set me on edge. "Serafina and I have exciting news." They showed off her enormous diamond ring, ostentatious and jarring to my core values. "It's lovely," I'd said, trying to be genuine. A flicker of disappointment crossed Serafina's face. My first true warning. Months passed in distant cordiality. I attended their elegant engagement parties, a quiet outsider among Serafina's practiced smiles and designer clothes. Liam seemed different around me, eager to impress her powerful circle. The breaking point arrived 6 months ago, at Le Chateau, a place so expensive I felt my modest savings vanish with each menu item. They ordered champagne. Then came the bombshell. "We've secured Oak Ridge Estate," Serafina announced, her phone displaying lavish photos. "Daddy pulled strings. How wonderful," I said, a knot tightening in my stomach. 300 guests, 5 courses, a string quartet. This was beyond anything I'd ever imagined. "Mom?" Liam began, that familiar tone in his voice. "With the Oak Ridge deposit, the Bali honeymoon, and our penthouse down payment?" "What Liam is delicately trying to say," Serafina interrupted, her perfectly manicured fingers touching my hand. is that we need your help. Your house is worth $450,000. Sell it, and you can live comfortably at Sunny Pines Senior Living, helping us start our married life the right way." The sheer audacity stole my breath. They'd already valued my home, chosen my next prison. "I'm not selling my home," I finally said, pulling my hand away. "This is where Daniel and I built our life. My neighbors are family." Liam's face hardened. "This is why I didn't want to ask her," he told Serafina, as if I were invisible. "She's so stubborn about the house, even though it's too much for her. I manage fine." My voice tightened. "And I'm not ready for a retirement home. It's a community," Serafina corrected, her smile frozen. "Activities. People your own age. You'd be happier there." The conversation that followed was a blur of accusations. Liam called me selfish, clinging to the past. Serafina hinted I didn't care for his happiness. "Either you help us," Liam finally declared, his voice cold, "or don't expect to be part of that life. Your choice, Mom." They left, leaving me to pay the exorbitant bill. For weeks, I tried to bridge the chasm. Calls, texts, even showing up at his office. Each attempt met with silence or dismissal. Then, 3 weeks ago, the defaced invitation landed, sealing my exclusion. That evening, on the porch swing, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and pink, I made a quiet decision. I would attend. Not to cause a scene, but to simply bear witness, to hold space in my heart for the son I still loved. Mrs. Albright waved from next door, her simple kindness a fresh ache. This was my home, my community. The thought of losing it to finance their extravagance was unbearable. As darkness fell, I couldn't know that Liam's wedding morning would bring a phone call, one that would shatter everything I thought I knew about his relationship and the woman he was about to marry. Have you ever felt that a single, unexpected moment could irrevocably alter the course of your entire life? The week before Liam's wedding passed in a blur of conflicting emotions, each morning bringing a hollow ache to my chest. The reality of my exclusion hit me anew with every sunrise. I'd instinctively reach for my phone, hoping against hope for a message from Liam. An apology, a reconsideration, any sign that his heart had softened, but the screen remained stubbornly blank. I wandered through the house during those days, a silent ghost among cherished memories. My fingers traced the height markings on the kitchen door frame, tracking his growth from 3 to 16. I ran my hand over the slightly crooked bookshelf he and Daniel had built together for his 10th birthday. I stared at the framed certificate from his first architectural competition win in high school. Each memento told the story of a boy loved deeply, unconditionally. A story that felt increasingly disconnected from the man who had crossed my name off his wedding invitation. On Wednesday, I ventured into the attic, a space I rarely visited since Daniel's passing. Dust motes danced in the weak light filtering through the small window as I navigated around boxes labeled in Daniel's precise handwriting. Christmas decorations, Liam's school projects, family photos, 1980s. I was searching for something specific, something I hadn't looked at in years. The cedar chest in the corner, a wedding gift from Daniel's parents. I knelt beside it, my knees protesting the hardwood floor, and lifted the creaking lid. The familiar scent of cedar and lavender sachets enveloped me as I carefully moved aside layers of preserved memories. My wedding dress, yellowed with age, Daniel's military service medals, baby blankets I couldn't bear to part with after Liam outgrew them. At the bottom lay what I sought, a small leather journal with a worn spine. Daniel had started keeping it the day we learned I was pregnant with Liam, recording his thoughts about impending fatherhood and his hopes for our child's future. After Daniel died, I had placed it in the chest, finding it too painful to read, but too precious to discard. Now, I carried it downstairs to the sunroom Daniel had built as a surprise for my 50th birthday, settling into the wicker chair where afternoon light created a perfect reading nook. With trembling fingers, I opened the journal, Daniel's familiar handwriting bringing tears to my eyes immediately. April 15th, 1983. We're having a baby. After so many disappointments, it doesn't seem real. Ilara was so pale, gripping my hand like she might float away. I'm terrified and exhilarated all at once. What kind of father will I be? Dad was so distant, so critical. I want to be different. I want our child to feel secure in our love, to know they are enough, exactly as they are. I turned the pages slowly, tracing Daniel's journey from nervous, expectant father to devoted dad. His pride in Liam was evident in every entry. December 8th, 1983. Liam Daniel Sullivan arrived at 3:42 this morning. 7 pounds, 4 ounces of absolute perfection. I've never known love like this. I held him against my chest, this tiny human, and promised him the world. The entries continued through Liam's childhood. September 5th, 1991, first day of second grade. Tommy was nervous, but trying not to show it. Reminds me so much of myself at that age. Sensitive, but determined not to let anyone see it. I need to make sure he knows it's okay to feel things deeply, that vulnerability isn't weakness. Ilara is better at drawing him out than I am. She always knows the right questions to ask. The final entries were written during Daniel's last months, when he knew his time was limited. November 16th, 2011. Liam graduated with honours today. His architectural models were the highlight. I was so weak, I nearly couldn't attend, but I'm glad I pushed through. The pride on Ilara's face watching our son, that's an image I want to take with me. She sacrificed so much for him, especially these past 2 years. I worry about them both. Liam is so focused on making his mark, he sometimes misses what's truly important. I hope he realizes one day that his mother's unwavering support is worth more than any career achievement. December 3rd, 2011. Asked Liam to look after Ilara when I'm gone. He promised he would. Tears in his eyes. He's a good man at his core, but he's ambitious in a way neither Ilara nor I ever were. I fear that ambition might lead him to value the wrong things, to chase approval from the wrong people. I've tried to teach him that true wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in love, in community, in living with integrity. I can only hope those lessons have taken root. By the time I closed the journal, twilight had fallen. Tears had dried on my cheeks. Daniel had seen it all. Liam's sensitivity, his intelligence, his ambition, but also the shadow side, his vulnerability to external validation, his desire to belong among those he admired. The seeds of the conflict we now faced had been present even then, noticed by a father whose observations were unclouded by the blind devotion I sometimes fell prey to as a mother. The following day, I visited Margot, my closest friend since nursing school. At 70, she had a directness that came from decades in emergency medicine and a wisdom I had relied on since Daniel's passing. Her small apartment was cluttered with mementos from her travels. She had never married, choosing instead to work with Doctors Without Borders for much of her career. The scent of chai tea filled her kitchen as she listened to my plan to attend the wedding, despite my exclusion. "Are you sure that's why, Ilara?" she asked, concern evident in her faded blue eyes. Liam and that woman of his could make a very public scene. "I need to be there," I explained, cupping the warm mug between my hands. "Not to disrupt anything, just a witness. He's my only child, Margot. How could I not be present on his wedding day, even if he thinks he doesn't want me there?" Margot studied me for a long moment. "You've always had more grace than sense," she finally said with a sigh. "If you're determined to go, at least let me drive you. I don't want you facing this alone." Her offer brought fresh tears to my eyes. "Thank you," I whispered. "That would mean everything." "What will you wear?" she asked practically, moving to her overstuffed closet. "You'll need to look dignified, but understated. Nothing that screams, estranged mother of the groom." We spent the afternoon sorting through our combined wardrobes, finally settling on a dove grey dress with a subtle silver thread. woven through the fabric. It was elegant, without being flashy, respectful, without being drab. Margot loaned me a vintage pearl necklace to complete the ensemble. "There," she said, as I stood before her full-length mirror. "You look like exactly what you are. A woman of substance and heart who deserves better than she's been given." The night before the wedding, I barely slept. A spring storm rolled through after midnight, thunder rattling the windows as if echoing my turbulent emotions. By dawn, the rain had cleared, leaving the world washed clean and fragrant. I rose early, watching the sunrise from the garden bench where Daniel and I had shared countless morning coffees. "I don't know if I'm doing the right thing," I whispered, as if he could hear me, "but I can't bear the thought of not being there, even if Liam never knows I came." I dressed carefully, applied light makeup to disguise the shadows beneath my eyes, and fastened Margot's pearls around my neck. At precisely 8:30 a.m., I heard her car pull into the driveway. The ceremony wasn't until 11, but Oak Ridge Estate was on the opposite side of the city, and we wanted to arrive early enough to slip into the back row unnoticed. I took one last look around my beloved home before picking up my handbag. On the entry table sat a small wrapped package, a wedding gift for Liam and Serafina that I had no expectation of being able to deliver. It contained an antique silver compass that had belonged to Daniel's grandfather, a symbol of finding one's true direction in life. Inside, I tucked a card with a simple message: "May you always find your way home. With love, Mom." Just as my hand touched the doorknob, the phone rang. I hesitated, glancing at the clock. Margot was waiting. We needed to leave. The phone continued its insistent ring. Something compelled me to answer it, some instinct I couldn't explain. "Hello?" I said, expecting perhaps a telemarketer or wrong number. The voice that responded was female, unfamiliar, and clearly distressed. "Is this Ilara Sullivan? Liam Sullivan's mother?" "Yes," I replied cautiously. "Who's calling, please?" "My name is Chloe Davis. We've never met, but..." Her voice caught on what sounded like a sob. "I think there's something you need to know about your son's wedding. About Serafina. I don't know who else to call." Through the window, I could see Margot checking her watch, ready to whisk me to a wedding that suddenly felt even more complicated than it had moments before. Did a mother's intuition ever truly prepare you for the devastating truths that lurked just beneath the surface? "I'm listening," I said quietly, sinking into the chair beside the phone table as Chloe began to speak, her words gradually unraveling everything I thought I knew about my son's relationship and the woman he was about to marry. "I'm Serafina's former roommate," Chloe explained, her voice trembling slightly. "We shared an apartment. I thought we were close, until I discovered what she was really like." Through the window, I signaled to Margot, who nodded, settling back in her car, understanding our sudden delay. "Did Liam or Serafina ask you to sell your home for their wedding?" Chloe's direct question landed like a physical blow. How could this stranger know about our private family conflict? "Yes," I admitted, my voice barely audible. "That's her pattern," Chloe revealed, a bitter laugh escaping her. "You're not the first, Mrs. Sullivan. Serafina has done this 3 times in 7 years." My heart pounded. Each time she targeted men from successful backgrounds, but with parents who owned property or had retirement savings. Each time, she pressured those parents to liquidate assets to fund an extravagant wedding. And each time, she broke off the engagement just weeks before the ceremony, but not before gaining access to substantial cash and gifts. My mind raced. "Are you saying she's some kind of con artist?" "She's calculated," Chloe clarified. "The first time, Michael's parents sold their vacation cabin. The engagement ended mysteriously. The second, Daniel's mother took out a reverse mortgage. Same story. Serafina walked away with substantial funds, leaving families devastated financially and emotionally. Why wasn't she reported? Pressed charges?" I pressed, incredulous. "Pride? Embarrassment? And legally, it's complicated. She never technically stole anything. The men gave her access willingly. The parents willingly sold. Serafina always creates situations where she appears to be the wronged party when she ends the engagements. I thought of Liam's fierce defense of Serafina, how he'd become increasingly isolated from his old friends. I helped her once, Chloe admitted, shame coloring her tone. With Daniel, the second fiancé, I corroborated a story she created about him. Later, I found evidence she'd planned it all along, including text messages about targeting his mother's house specifically. Why tell me now? Today, of all days? Because last night she called me drunk, laughing about how she'd managed to drive a wedge between you and Liam. She said, and I'm quoting, "Another sentimental old bat who'll probably die alone in a nursing home while I enjoy her liquidated equity. I couldn't live with myself if I let it happen again. Last night's call was my breaking point. The cruelty of the words stole my breath. Pieces of the puzzle clicked into place. Serafina's immediate focus on my house, her practiced sympathy, her subtle encouragement of Liam's worst tendencies. There's more, Mrs. Sullivan," Chloe added. "Serafina lost her job 3 months ago. She was fired for falsifying client billings. She's deeply in debt. Credit cards, shopping addiction, gambling. She needs Liam's income and other sources of cash. Your house equity would solve a lot of her problems." The doorbell rang. Margot, using her key, let herself in, finding me pale and clutching the phone in my white-knuckled hand. "Ellie, what's wrong?" she whispered, taking in my shocked expression. "Mrs. Sullivan, are you still there?" Chloe asked through the phone. "Yes," I managed. "Do you have proof of any of this? Liam won't believe me without evidence. He's very much in love with her." Even as I said the words, I wondered if what Liam felt was truly love, or if he too had been manipulated. I have screenshots of text conversations, copies of the previous wedding contracts, photos of the properties her other fiancé's parents sold, and a recording of last night's call. Chloe paused. I started recording our conversations after what happened with Daniel, for my own protection. "I've already sent everything to the email address listed in the alumni directory from your nursing school. I hope it's current." I confirmed the address, then asked the question weighing heaviest on my heart. "Why Liam? Why my son specifically?" Serafina researches potential marks carefully. Chloe sigh. "Ed," her voice carrying years of regret. "She looks for men who are professionally successful, but not independently wealthy. Men who are close to their parents, especially if those parents own property free and clear. Men who might be a bit insecure socially, eager to impress. And, I'm sorry to say this, men who might be somewhat estranged from one parent, creating a vulnerability she can exploit." The description fit Liam with painful accuracy. Daniel's death had left him raw, seeking external validation. "You're speaking now," I replied, surprising myself with the new steadiness in my voice. "That's what matters." As I hung up, a cold determination settled over me, eclipsing the shock. There was no time for denial. The truth, however shattering, demanded immediate action. How quickly could a perfect day turn into the most critical moment of your life, demanding a courage you never knew you possessed? "My God," Margot breathed, her face draining of color as I finished explaining Chloe's revelations. The clock on the kitchen wall ticked loudly, each second amplifying the impossible truth. It was just after 9:45 a.m. The wedding, a spectacle of deception, was set for 11 a.m. There was no time to lose. "I need proof," I told Margot, my voice surprisingly steady. "Liam won't believe me without it. He's too far gone." My ancient desktop computer felt agonizingly slow. When Chloe's email finally loaded, it burst with attachments, damning text messages, financial records, photos of properties sold for ghost weddings. Most chilling was the audio file. Serafina's voice, slurred but unmistakable, laughing about her manipulation of Liam, her vile plans for my house. The casual cruelty made my stomach churn. "This is unbelievable," Margot muttered, her gaze fixed on the screen, her seasoned nurse's calm cracking under the weight of the evidence. We have to get this to Liam. Now. He won't take my calls, I said, a bitter truth. He's blocked my number. My mind raced, desperate. Who else could reach him? Who would even listen? Then, a thought sparked. Noah. His best man. He went to college with Liam. Hope flickered. Liam hadn't spoken much of Noah lately, but Serafina wouldn't have been able to isolate Liam completely from his oldest friend, especially not someone in the wedding party. Do you have his number? Margot urged. A frantic search through my old address book finally yielded it. With trembling fingers, I dialed, praying Noah hadn't changed numbers. It went to voicemail. I left a brief, urgent message, begging him to call me back about Liam. Running out of options, a single, firm decision solidified in my mind. We're going to the wedding, I declared, gathering the hastily printed evidence into a folder. Not as guests. To stop it, Margot looked skeptical. They'll never let you near him. You said the venue has security. Then we'll find another way, I insisted, a mother's fierce determination overriding logic. I will not let that woman destroy my son. As we hurried to Margot's car, the enormity of what we were attempting hit me. I was about to potentially humiliate my son on what should have been the happiest day of his life. Even with evidence, he might not believe me. He might hate me forever for interfering. But the alternative, standing by while he married a woman who saw him as nothing more than a financial resource, was unthinkable. Daniel had always said I was too protective, that I needed to let Liam make his own mistakes. Margot gripped the steering wheel, her jaw set. There are mistakes, and then there are catastrophes, Ilara. This falls firmly in the latter category. The Oak Ridge estate appeared ahead, its grandeur a stark contrast to the churning dread in my heart. Could one mother's desperate truth break through a lifetime of lies? Oak Ridge estate appeared ahead, a fortress of manicured lawns and grand elegance. My heart sank. Luxury cars filled the lot, guests streamed toward the garden, but a uniformed guard checked invitations at the main entrance. We sat for a moment, formulating a desperate plan. The service entrance, I finally suggested, recalling my nursing days. There's always a back way in for deliveries and staff. Margot nodded. Now you're thinking like the Ilara I trained with in the ER. We navigated the perimeter, trying to look purposeful in our formal wear. Behind the main building, a utilitarian door pulsed with catering staff. Follow my lead, Margot whispered, adopting her seasoned hospital administrator's imperious look. She approached a harried young man. Excuse me. Groom's suite? Urgent message for Mr. Sullivan from Miss Beaumont? He barely glanced up, pointing. Second floor, East Wing. But they're moving to the ceremony site in like 5 minutes. So hurry. We slipped inside, navigating the controlled chaos of a high-end wedding in final preparation. Following signs, we found the stairs and ascended quickly, the folder of evidence clutched tightly in my hands. The hallway on the second floor was quiet, thick carpet muffling our footsteps as we searched for the East Wing. A burst of male laughter guided us to a door marked Groom's Suite. I hesitated, suddenly paralyzed by doubt. What if he doesn't believe me? Truth is still truth, Ilara, Margot said, squeezing my hand reassuringly. Even when it's painful. Especially when it's painful. I took a deep breath and knocked firmly on the door. The door swung open to reveal Noah, handsome in his tuxedo, but looking somehow diminished from the exuberant young man who used to spend holidays at our dinner table. "Mrs. Sullivan?" he gasped, stepping into the hallway and pulling the door nearly closed. "What are you doing here? Liam said you weren't—" "Noah, please!" I interrupted, desperation making my voice quiver. "I need to speak with my son immediately." "It's urgent." He glanced nervously over his shoulder. "This isn't a good time. We're heading down for the ceremony in a few minutes, and Liam is already stressed about— It's about Serafina," I said bluntly. "She's not who he thinks she is." I have evidence he needs to see before he makes a terrible mistake. Something flickered across Noah's face, a shadow of doubt that told me he might not be entirely surprised by my words. "Noah?" Liam's voice called from within. "Who's at the door?" Before Noah could respond, the door pulled fully open and my son stood before me. The sight of him, so handsome in his tuxedo, so like Daniel, nearly took my breath away. For a moment, he simply stared, disbelief etched across his features. "Mum?" The word emerged, half-whispered, as if he might be hallucinating. Then his expression hardened. "What are you doing here? I made it clear you weren't welcome." The coldness in his voice cut deep, but Chloe's revelations gave me courage. "Liam, please, just 5 minutes. There's something you need to know before the ceremony." "I don't need to know anything except that you've chosen your house over my happiness," he snapped. "I can't believe you'd show up here to cause a scene on my wedding day." "I'm not here to cause a scene," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. "I'm here because I love you too much to stay silent." Margot stepped forward. "Liam, your mother received some very disturbing information this morning. Information about Serafina that you need to hear?" Liam's face flushed with anger. "So, you brought reinforcements to ambush me? This is exactly why I didn't want you here. You've never given Serafina a fair chance. You've been against her from the beginning because she sees through your manipulative—" "Liam Daniel Sullivan," I interrupted, my mother's tone cutting through his tirade. "I have never lied to you, and I'm not starting now. Please, 5 minutes. If you still want to go through with the wedding afterward, I'll leave quietly. You'll never have to see me again." Did the stark sincerity of that final promise, offered with such raw pain, finally pierce through his anger? Or was it the sheer desperation in a mother's voice that made him hesitate, prompting him to grant those precious few minutes? 5 minutes? Liam conceded icily, gesturing us into a small sitting room. Once the door was closed, I wasted no time. "Serafina has been engaged 3 times before," I began, opening the folder. Each time she targeted men whose parents had significant assets, pressuring them to liquidate property to fund extravagant weddings. And each time, she broke off the engagement just before the ceremony, but not before securing joint accounts and assets. Liam stared. "That's ridiculous. That's insane." "I wish it were," I said softly, handing him the printouts. "These are text messages from Serafina to her former roommate, Chloe. This one mentions targeting your mother's cute little house as far back as your 3rd date." His hands trembled as he scanned the messages. Disbelief warred with the damning evidence. "Listen to this, then," Margot said, playing the recording from my phone. Serafina's slurred, unmistakable voice filled the room. "Another sentimental old bat who'll probably DMN die alone in a nursing home while I enjoy her liquidated equity. Liam is even easier to manage than Daniel was, so desperate for approval, so conveniently estranged from Mommy." The silence that followed was absolute. Liam sat heavily, the papers trembling. "There's more," I added gently. Financial records showing she was fired for falsifying client billings, over $200,000 in debt. Documentation of the previous weddings that never happened. "She said she was promoted," he murmured, his voice hollow. "She's been going to work every day. She's been lying to you, sweetheart," I said, using the endearment I hadn't dared in months. About her job, her past, her intentions. Liam looked up, and I saw my little boy again. Vulnerable, hurt. "Why?" he asked simply. "Why me?" "Chloe says Serafina researches targets carefully," I explained. "Men who are successful but not independently wealthy. Close to parents with clear property. Men eager to impress. Perhaps with some estrangement from a parent. Creating a vulnerability." Liam flinched, the description hitting painfully close. A sharp knock interrupted us. Noah poked his head in. "Liam, everyone's waiting. The officiant says we need to start in 5 minutes." Liam stared at the papers, then at me. "What do I do?" he asked, sounding younger than his years. "There are 200 people out there, You have options, Margot offered. Postpone, go through with it, or end it now. If I postpone, or go through with it, I'm just prolonging the inevitable, aren't I? Liam ran a hand through his hair. Once I know this, I can't unknow it. Another knock, more insistent this time. Seraphina's father's voice. Thomas? What's the hold-up? Seraphina is ready to process in. Liam took a deep breath, squaring his shoulders. I need to see her, he said, standing. I need to look her in the eyes when I ask her about this. He gathered the evidence, tucking it into his jacket. Thank you for coming today. For not giving up on me. Even when I gave up on you. He opened the door and walked into the hallway, leaving Margot and me alone. Could a single, brutal truth truly shatter a man's future, and in its wreckage, offer a painful path to self-discovery? Well, Margot said after a moment, the silence in the small sitting room thick with anticipation. That didn't go quite how I expected. No, I agreed, my heart racing. But he heard us. He believed us. That's more than I dared hope for. The seconds stretched, agonizing. What now? Margot asked. Now, I admitted, glancing at my watch, nearly 10:58 a.m. Now we wait, and pray he finds the strength to do what needs to be done. We made our way downstairs, avoiding the main areas where guests were starting to gather. Through a large window, I could see the garden ceremony site. Rows of pristine white chairs, adorned with lavish floral arrangements. A flower-covered arch where vows would be exchanged, musicians poised with their instruments. So much expense, so much spectacle, all built on a foundation of lies. A sudden sound of raised voices pulled our attention to a side corridor. There, in a small antechamber, its door ajar, stood Liam and Seraphina. She was a vision in her designer gown, resplendent, but her expression shifted rapidly. Confusion, then mounting alarm as Liam spoke, his back to us. Margot and I couldn't hear the words, but we watched Seraphina's face transform. Disbelief, then defensive anger, then a chillingly calculating calm. She reached for Liam, her hand on his arm, her expression softening into something that seemed like genuine distress. I saw her mouth form words that looked like denials, explanations, perhaps even accusations against me. Liam shook his head, removing her hand from his arm. Then he reached into his pocket and withdrew the papers. Seraphina's composure shattered as he handed them to her one by one. Even from our vantage point, I saw the exact moment understanding dawned. The shocking realization that her scheme had been utterly exposed. Her transformation was startling. The beautiful, controlled woman who had looked down on my modest home and simple life vanished, replaced by someone whose face contorted with pure fury. She snatched at the papers in Liam's hands, tearing several before he could step back. Her voice rose, now audible, sharp, and cutting even to us. You ungrateful, pathetic little man. Do you have any idea what you're throwing away? Who do you think would want you without me? You're nothing but a small-time architect from nowhere, with your shabby little firm and your sad little dreams. Liam stood still, absorbing the verbal assault with a calmness that spoke of a newfound clarity. When she paused for breath, his response was too quiet for us to hear, but its effect on Seraphina was electric. Whatever he said made her recoil, as if slapped. For a moment, they stood in tableau. Liam straight-backed and resolute, Seraphina trembling with thwarted rage. Then, in a shocking burst, she grabbed a crystal vase from a nearby table and hurled it at the wall beside Liam's head. The crash brought several wedding staff running. Seraphina stormed past them, shoving aside a concerned coordinator, disappearing down the corridor. The train of her designer gown sweeping behind her like a vengeful cloud. Liam remained in the antechamber, his back still to us, his shoulders slightly slumped, as if a great weight had been lifted, but left bruises. After a moment, Noah appeared at his side, saying something that made Liam nod. "Should we go to him?" Margot whispered, her eyes wide. I shook my head. Not yet. He needs a minute. Noah guided Liam toward another door, presumably to give him privacy from the growing number of staff and curious guests drawn by the commotion. I glimpsed my son's profile as he turned, ashen but composed, his jaw set in the same determined expression Daniel had worn when facing difficult truths. What happens now? Margot asked as we watched them disappear. I don't know, I admitted. But whatever it is, I'll be here for him, if he wants me to be. Before Margot could respond, Seraphina's father, Mr. Beaumont, appeared at the end of the corridor. His face was thunderous as he surveyed the broken glass and confused staff. His eyes landed on me, narrowing in immediate hostility. You! He bellowed, advancing toward us. This is your doing. You couldn't stand to see your son happy, could you? Had to poison him against Seraphina because you're jealous of her youth, her success, her place in his life. I straightened my spine, meeting his gaze steadily. Mr. Beaumont, I understand you're upset, but perhaps you should speak with your daughter before making accusations. My daughter is in tears because your son just called off the wedding minutes before the ceremony, he shouted, his face reddening. Do you have any idea of the humiliation, the expense? We have 200 guests out there. I'm sorry for the inconvenience, I replied, my voice deliberately calm. But I'm more concerned about the fact that your daughter has a pattern of targeting men for financial gain, breaking off engagements after families have liquidated assets, and walking away with substantial sums that were never returned. My direct statement stopped him cold. His expression shifted, a flicker of something. Knowledge, concern, crossing his features before hardening again. That's preposterous. That's defamation. I could sue you for... You could, Margot interjected smoothly, stepping forward. But then all the evidence would become part of the public record. The recordings, the text messages, the documentation of previous engagements and financial transactions. Is that really a risk you want to take, Mr. Beaumont? The implication hung in the air. After a long moment, he stepped back, straightening his tie in a gesture that seemed designed to buy time. I don't know what game you're playing, he said, his voice now controlled, almost diplomatic. But this isn't over. Seraphina and Liam have just had a misunderstanding. Every couple argues before the wedding. It's normal pre-ceremony jitters. His attempt to minimize it would have been comical if it weren't so desperately sad. Mr. Beaumont, I said gently, I think we both know this is more than jitters. Your daughter needs help, not enablement. And my son deserves the truth. Before he could respond, Noah reappeared, scanning the area until he spotted me. He hurried over, pointedly ignoring Mr. Beaumont. Mrs. Sullivan, he said, slightly out of breath. Liam is asking for you. He's in the library on the east side of the building. He glanced at the broken glass, the hovering staff, Mr. Beaumont's thunderous expression. It's been quite a morning. Thank you, Noah, I said, squeezing his arm gratefully, for everything. As Margot and I followed Noah toward the library, leaving Mr. Beaumont surrounded by the wreckage of his daughter's latest scheme, I felt a curious mixture of sorrow and relief. The wedding that had consumed my thoughts for months was now definitively cancelled, but at what cost to my son's heart and pride? Liam had avoided a disastrous marriage, but now faced the humiliation of explaining to 200 guests why there would be no ceremony. Yet beneath these concerns ran a current of cautious hope. Liam had asked for me. After months of silence and rejection, my son wanted his mother by his side as he navigated the aftermath of betrayal. It was a beginning, tenuous, fragile, but real. In moments of profound crisis, when everything falls apart, do we truly discover who stands by us and who we truly are? The library at Oak Ridge Estate was a sanctuary of quiet elegance, a hushed contrast to the chaos outside. Liam stood by a tall window, his jacket off, his face streaked with tears. When he turned, I opened my arms. He crossed the room in 3 long strides, pulling me into a desperate embrace, the first physical contact we'd shared in months. "I'm so sorry, Mom," he whispered, his voice raw. "Unforgivable things. Nothing my son could do, I wouldn't forgive," I replied, stroking his hair. He pulled back, wiping his eyes. "Serafina is gone. Her family's firm is under investigation. My job, gone too. Because of her father's influence." He looked lost. "But I've started new work, Ilara. Affordable housing. It feels right." He looked around the quiet room. "After everything, home? You said I'd always have one." "Always, Liam. Your father and I, we built more than a house. We built a home where you're loved, unconditionally. A fragile peace settled between us." He finally understood what true wealth meant. Not money, but belonging. A home wasn't just wood and nails. It was love, family, an unwavering anchor. For us, after months of painful distance, this was a beginning. A reunion far more meaningful than any wedding could have been. What are your thoughts on Liam's journey from betrayal to clarity? Have you ever had to redefine what home truly means in your own life? Share your stories below. Your voice matters so much to us. And don't forget to subscribe for more journeys of unexpected strength.